Hi guys, today's guest is Robert Rackley, an accredited psychotherapist, speaker, and trainer specializing in ADHD, autism, and neurodivergent mental health. Diagnosed with ADHD as an adult, Robert combines lived experience with professional expertise. He went on to complete a master's degree in autism and neurodiversity and has since dedicated his career to helping neurodivergent people better understand themselves, improve their well-being, and navigate a world that isn't always designed with neurodivergent brains in mind. Today we'll be exploring late diagnosis, masking, rejection, sensitivity, burnout, trauma, and what truly neurodivergent affirming support looks like. Thank you so much, Robert. That is a big intro.
What
Thank
an
you.
introduction. Thank you. Sounds good.
I'm so glad because we're here now.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you for coming. Can you tell us a bit about your own journey?
Yeah, so that summary was very good. So I'm late diagnosed. I suppose like a huge amount of us. The diagnosis I have is the combined type ADHD. So the hyperactivity on the outside. It's I've got a fidget in my hand today, which
Yeah.
I always have, something to keep me regulated. And then the internal one, the inattentive ADHD, which frequently gets misunderstood. So having that but undiagnosed meant it was a lifetime of trying to sort things out, trying to improve, get better. So I went to a lot of therapy over the years, and one thing that did happen was that my diagnosis, my journey towards ADHD was done outside of therapy and not inside. So the experience I have is of being undiagnosed in a therapy room
Yeah.
and then undiagnosed as a therapist, and
Okay.
then diagnosed as a therapist, and then diagnosed in a therapy room as a
So you
client.
see every flip side of the coin.
Every angle, yes. And
And can I ask, was your therapist ADHD or neurodivergent or trained in neurodivergent before or after diagnosis?
yeah, so psychotherapists are extraordinarily well trained.
Hmm.
Really, the training it's extensive and it goes on a long time. And there's a lot of therapy that has to be done by the therapist as well. So
Yeah.
what you have is extraordinarily good and qualified people who don't have formal training typically in neurodiversity or being neurodivergent. So what that means is that you have people presenting with anxiety, depression, and if a therapist is not trained, that's where they might focus. So they might stay with the say anxiety and help support a person to have a better life by reducing anxiety. So no, I don't believe any of the therapists that I came across were neurodivergent. They certainly at the time were not diagnosed.
Do you think it
Um,
helps being, you're a therapist and you're neurodivergent, and I come across this a lot. A lot of people say, how can you be ADHD and be a therapist? Or how can you be autistic and be a therapist? But I actually think, I personally, now I know that I have AUDHD, I would personally rather see someone that I can relate to. And, I know once you meet one neurodivergent person, you've met one neurodivergent person, and
Absolutely.
and we're all different. But I quite like the fact that I'm going to someone with that's looking through it through a similar lens.
And that it is a lovely experience. And for me, I suppose I get to these days I get to see that unfold. A lot of us have been to therapy for a long
Yeah.
time, trying to figure out, what
What's
the
wrong with
thing
us?
exactly. Yeah, literally, what's wrong is always the
Yeah.
question. And so when someone lands into a different sort of space with a therapist who I try and unmask. So I try and be a therapist that's showing what it's like as a therapist to live with ADHD. And then if a client does that very same thing, which is unmask and become comfortable, you can see the power of therapy then, because what you have then is two unmasked neurodivergent people doing therapy together. And
Yeah.
that, like, I suppose the gold standard for me is that, but not everybody's going to get that, unfortunately, because what I have come to realize is the amount of neurodivergent people who are therapists currently, we're just not out there in enough numbers. There's plenty more people coming, and I suppose the good news about therapists, certainly in Ireland, is the willingness, the upskilling that's going on. There's plenty of training that's
Yeah.
happening, and therapists really, really trying. I think if you get a therapist that is at the very least willing to hear you, listen to your individual story, but go and do a bit of research themselves as well, and find out a little bit more about what the client is saying. I think that's quite good. And I
Yeah.
think good therapy can happen on that basis.
So it doesn't have to be someone that's neurodivergent, but it's a good thing to have. It's a good thing to have.
Yeah,
And it
absolutely.
doesn't discredit a person or therapist if they're neurodivergent. Because I think a lot, would neurotypical people really want to see a neurodivergent therapist?
God, yeah.
There's sometimes bad connotations. They might think, oh, she's got ADHD, she's going to be late, or she's a liability, or blah, blah, blah. Is it something that needs to be disclosed?
God, there's a question. That's a deep one. Because we're going back into the stereotypes,
Yeah.
in every part of society. Um, is ADHD looked down upon? We know what people out there, some think
Yeah.
of ADHD, and we know what some people think of autism as well. So I think as a therapist, my practice is fully neurodivergent now,
Okay.
um, and that happened organically probably.
Hmm.
So anyone who generally comes in, um, you can have people who aren't diagnosed coming into therapy who have that question mark in the air, but the very fact that they have that question in the mark in
It
the air
generally
usually
is
it leads,
something.
yeah, because you don't. And I've asked people without autism and ADHD, like how they feel. Do they feel different? And generally, you'll get the answer no.
Yeah,
I don't feel different at all.
I
Yet
agree.
when somebody, and it's a question I'd always, I train therapists as well. I always ask therapists to ask that question. Ask the person, do they feel different? And you'll get an answer. And as you know, the typical answer is, we do.
Yeah,
And you get the
I'm
yes.
meeting so many of them, and they're all like, "Oh my God, have you always felt different?" And I even when I was growing up, I thought that I had a superpower at times. Like honestly,
Yeah,
I thought there was something wrong with me. I could predict like the future. It now I know it's pattern recognition,
yeah,
but I thought I was magic. Like there's been so many things, and to meet so many people in later life that are like, "Shit, I thought I was magic," or "I thought that there was something wrong." It's so validating.
absolutely. And I think that that experience of, being with your tribe, and
Yeah.
realizing that it's not just you, it is really important. As you know, we go on a very lonely journey with divergence
Yeah.
because of we're not sure what the thing is. So a lot of internal thinking, really bad for the mental health. But
Really.
when you realize that there's people out there who are very similar, really, really similar, or
Especially when you've
sometimes,
grown up feeling so bloody different.
yeah. And and unfortunately, as divergent people, and the social aspect of things, sometimes we're very isolated and alone. And
Hmm.
then the thing I get to see in therapy is the people who are kind of ready now to show themselves to the world and don't know what to do next.
Mm.
And then, I'll see the next client and they're saying the same thing, and the next client and they're saying the same thing. And so we have a lot of people who are a little bit lonely in their journey,
Yeah.
because of being marginalised and not sure really what the thing was.
I think that's why I put my name as I've always been, Ellie that talks too much, or Ellie that's a little bit weird, Ellie that's a little bit quirky. And
Yeah,
when I started my Facebook and my platforms, I just thought, you know what, I'm going to reclaim it. And so other people find me, because I find it so validating finding other people. And I get messages all the time from people like, oh my God, you've just said what I've been thinking for years. And I thought I was
yeah,
weird for thinking it, because I'm very open. And I put my name as Ellie AuDHD because I feel like it's making them gravitate towards me, and we need that, because I speak
absolutely.
to so many people every day that are just so isolated because we've grown up being isolated or thinking that we're rubbish. And it's so nice to have found this tribe that I can put them all together and pair them all up, and you don't have to be lonely. I mean, of course it won't work for everyone, but
Absolutely.
it's my mission.
And that it is, more and more of that is needed, because there's people searching. And
Yeah.
if they're landing at the wrong platforms and hearing the wrong things, they can end up having quite a negative experience about learning and becoming
Yeah.
neurodivergent, becoming more neurodivergent. But if we have a society where there's marginalisation, which there is, then a voice like yours, that sort of, the Me Too, God, this experience is shared. I get this.
Yeah.
The more of that we have, and I hope people are really leaning into the fact that there's nothing actually wrong with us.
No, there isn't. We are just, and I think a lot of us, I think most of us, especially those of us over 40, have thought all along there's something wrong with us, and
Yeah,
we've internalized it so
completely.
awfully. I've been in therapy, not anymore, but I've been in therapy since I was 15, thinking, trying to find the answer to this $1 million question, what the fuck's wrong with me?
Yeah,
And,
completely.
and now I feel like shit. I'm so validated. I know what's wrong, and I must spread the word to everyone that will listen. And I used to start off with doing things like, oh, I've got ADHD because I lose my keys. No, now I'm going to be honest with you. I've got ADHD because if someone doesn't text me back within 5 minutes, I want to die. Like,
That's
this
it.
is, I sometimes put off going to the toilet so much, I wet myself. Like, this is ADHD. It's not
Yeah.
cute losing your keys. That does happen a million times a day. But I want to be completely authentic and honest and show, this is what ADHD is for me.
And then it's nice for people to see that because so many people buy into the mask.
Yeah.
And as you know, the comparison that neurodivergent people do, looking at others and thinking, God, they're doing that really well. They're doing it better.
Yeah.
Why can't I be like that? And then the lowering of how we feel about ourselves through all that comparisons over and over again, the not good enough creeping in, and then the idea then that we're simply not doing life as good as, and we're behind, and we should be doing better. Lots of shoulds arrive in. This shouldn't be like this. I shouldn't have to live like this. I shouldn't be doing this. Those shoulds are very soul destroying when they're repeated so often.
Yeah. We've just internalized it for a whole entire lifetime.
Absolutely, and that internalized. One way I explain it in therapy is with ableism, and then the idea of internalized ableism. And internalized ableism, it's very complex because it is literally a lifetime of all the messaging. So all the negative things that we've heard, whether that's towards us or just in general, right from the schoolyards up, that there's things said about autistic people and there's things said about ADHD. And then over time, they become our own thoughts.
Yeah.
And so we become ableist internally. And
Yeah.
that is a real mess when it
we're
arrives in
working we're working against ourselves, and it's not even things,
completely.
sometimes it's things that people have said intentionally, but sometimes it's just, when you can't do something like everyone else and you get this look, and
Yeah,
you just expecting it every time, and that is a lot. That's a lot to carry with you for 40 years, let alone all the other life stuff that other people have. And
yeah,
it's a recipe for disaster. And I think in the beginning, so when I was 15, I got diagnosed with BPD.
yeah,
And this seems to be a massive pandemic. And, my dad's autistic, but my dad's nearly 80. He's only found out recently he was autistic. He just thought all the time that there was something magical about him, I guess. And I think there's something magical about him too. But, he's just been it's a family trait that has just been diagnosed. But we've all grown up thinking that there's something wrong, or it's BPD. And now there's so much more awareness that but we're trying to undo that damage.
yeah.
And it's so deep rooted in us. I
And that
see.
that deep
Yeah.
rooted stuff, uh, that is the thing that anyone kind of, particularly in the late diagnosed area, it's very deep. The idea of having something your entire life and trying to separate what's real in your head
Yeah.
and what was originally there. And then the little comments, those little things you're talking about, they're so subtle. But the idea that we even say, oh, why have I done that again? Or
Yeah.
that questioning of ourselves, um, it's
And if
extraordinarily
that
bad.
happens to you 50 times a day, and it
Yeah.
has at times, or even maybe it's my own perception, with the RSD and that, and I think someone's looking at me like that. If that keeps happening to you 50 times a day for 40 years, like, I'm surprised some days I'm still here because I've internalized so much over the years.
And that internalization you're talking about, it does lead, as you know, to us making decisions about ourselves
Yeah.
and who we are and what we can't do. And it becomes quite a negative experience. And the thing that you're doing, and the thing I'm trying to do also, is to reframe all of that stuff. And like less about the things that we're getting wrong and less about the things that we can't, and the things that we struggle with, acknowledging and working with them, but what we can do, and the fabulous things that neurodivergent people can achieve. And when it's reframed and retold the story, for a lot of us, there's a lot of trauma in the making, so it's looking back. But when you're, I like when I'm talking to teenagers, and they're
Mm,
finding out their diagnosis early. It's almost like, I'm glad that they don't have to go through what a lot of us had to go through,
yeah,
with late diagnosis. And when you reframe it and understand, and they get it, so they say positive things about themselves,
yeah,
and they're reframing in a way that, oh, I can do this.
yeah.
I think I know what to do. I think I get this now. That is lovely early on.
There's so many transferable skills. I mean, I've got three adult children in their 20s, and then I've got a 9-year-old, and some have been diagnosed and some have not. And when I had the first set of children that are in their 20s,
Yeah,
I didn't realise I was AuDHD. I just thought there was something wrong. So, all the way through their childhood, when they would do something wrong, I would correct them because I'd think, shit, I don't want them to repeat the same mistakes. I don't want anyone to think they're this, there's something wrong with them, and I don't want them to go. I was correcting them
yeah,
because I saw them as an extension of me, and I didn't want them to go through what I'd gone through. Now I've learnt my lesson. I know about neurodivergence. The journey is completely different with my 9-year-old. I think
yeah,
we have so many transferable skills. I know, like, recently I like to reframe stuff. So every week, I've got a Facebook group of 40,000 people, and every night I ask a question, but I try and change it up. So one night I'll ask quite a deep question, and then the next night I'll ask a positive question because it's so important. And a lot
yeah,
of the questions that I've asked, I've realised that we have so many transferable skills. Our pattern recognition is second to none. Mine is my justice. Like, I have a passion for justice for absolutely every. It's been to my detriment at times, but it's really, my moral compass is so bloody strong, and I
yeah,
can only think that that springs from my neurodivergence or my dad's neurodivergence. It's in that inherited trait. So we do have so many transferable skills where my hyper focus is my job, and it
yeah,
gets me places. So we have transferable skills, but it's just teaching the younger people, the youth, let's go into your transferable skills. Let's concentrate on what we are good at and
absolutely.
not what we're bad at.
And that's the future.
It is.
That hopefully, if we keep doing that, we're going to have a very different society, a very different person. And for anyone listening who, one thing that does come up quite frequently is, people who hear, the gifts that we have,
Yeah.
and then they internalize, but I don't have any.
Yeah.
And I hear about superpowers, but I have none.
Yeah.
And
What's your
I,
savant skill?
yeah,
Well,
what?
mine's knowing every record on the radio. Like, how's that helpful to anyone? Why can't I know, like, streets off by heart or something?
Yeah, no, and that idea of, that you could transfer, the bits that you're good at towards something, it is powerful when people explore that, because it doesn't have to be, one particular thing. And if you haven't found your thing yet, it can arrive later.
Yeah.
But it arrives later when you feel a bit safer inside yourself, and
Yeah.
you're feeling more comfortable, with yourself. And then you can really see the skills, that are available. But when we're being extraordinarily hard on ourselves and we're putting ourselves down constantly, it's very hard to grow when, the internal system, the nervous system, is set in more of a survival mode than it is to. It's survival mode. Sometimes the skills aren't there because it's more about getting through the day than it is about doing the dream or the nicer thing. And actually, as you know, when we find that one thing that we want to do, that's it. That's all
Yeah,
we need to focus in on.
it's our hyper focus. So I've got a client, and she's quite clearly neurodivergent, and she's been for her autism test,
Yeah,
and she was answering all the questions very literally, which is another issue in itself. And
absolutely.
she came back and she said, I don't have any skills or any hyper focuses. All I know is the script for Only Fools and Horses off by heart. I know every single
Amazing.
episode of Only Fools and Horses. And I don't have any hyper focuses. And I'm trying to think of what. And I said, that's it right there. How many people know that off by heart? That's a pattern recognition. She didn't realise it came so naturally to her. It was
Yeah.
so intrinsically ingrained into her that she didn't even realise that that was a skill that can be transferred to other areas.
Yeah.
So she told them that she had no hyper focus, she had no skills with remembering things. But I was like, no, I think it's because it's so intrinsically in you. We don't realise that it's not something that everyone else does.
Isn't that quite sad? And too
So
common.
sad.
It really is. We don't see like listening to it. The idea that somebody can do that. It's phenomenal.
Yeah,
What a gift. What a talent. And then the idea then that that person thinks that no, I don't have anything.
yeah,
And that shows you the scale of what neurodivergent people deal with.
yeah.
But in particular, the stuff that we think about ourselves, that and that underlying thing that always every day in therapy, the not good enough.
Yeah. But I can see how it's easily done, like I said, with my boys, with my older kids. God, it's something I beat myself up for on a daily basis. They used to stim this before I even knew what autism was. They'd be
Yeah,
like moving from foot to foot, stimming. And I'd be
yeah,
like, don't do that. People might say something. And I feel so guilty now because now I know. And with my daughter, if I see her doing that, I'm like, yeah, do it. But with
absolutely.
them, I wanted to protect them from the world, and I didn't know what autism was, so I was like, no, don't do that, and I'd done exactly what I had done to me. So sometimes it's not from a place of malice,
No,
that we've endured this trauma. And I know my kids have endured trauma from that, and situations like that where I've always made them feel like, don't be yourself, but that was never from a place of malice. I just didn't know. I was a lot younger. Do you think that is, how can we change that as parents? Is that a lot for a lot of people? Now I'm older diagnosed, I'm like, shit, why did I stop them being themselves for so long, do you meet people like that, or is it just me?
oh, it's that hindsight it's a terrible vision.
Oh, it is,
It,
it's evil.
because you see and then it becomes when I'm doing this, by the way, when parents are coming to terms, and that often happens. So the teenager comes in, or the younger person comes in, and then the parents often come into the session. They're like, yeah, but I do that as well. Like,
Yeah.
well, I've
Yeah.
always done it. And when it gets to this bit, this the view that we have of the past, I do just remind parents that like there's no rule book. You were never told about what this is, and so
Yeah.
you followed the rule book where that behaviour was not acceptable,
Yeah.
and that's what happened to us, and that's how we became
Yeah.
traumatized. And then, but then. It's only when you realize what it is that you can actually do anything about it. So you've got to be, as parents, you've got to be really, really, really kind. Like
Yeah.
really kind to yourself looking back, because it's going to become so obvious. And then the thing that you've seen, stimming, an absolutely necessity, powerful tool.
Yeah.
Fidgeting. I'm doing it now with a marble in a mesh. It's a thing that I flick
Yeah.
up and
I
down,
have got one. Yeah.
and and with these, that's it. It's fidgeting. It's stimming, and as we know what stimming is, it's that like all the information that we receive and all the sensory stuff that we receive, and it's a way of calming ourselves down. It's
Yeah.
a natural way of doing it. The body's moving in a very natural position, and then parents and like undiagnosed and teachers, we give out to the child for moving in their own natural way.
Yeah, it's crazy, and it's so sad, and I think that's why it's so important that we spread the word about neurodivergence, because
Yeah,
when people used to come to me and say, I think your child's autistic, they used to say it from when he was about 3 years old, even family members, because they knew about autism, and I
yeah,
used to be so offended. I'd be like,
yeah,
how can you say that? So rude to say to someone. But I was so stupid. I didn't know, that I was autistic and that it wasn't a bad thing. That's why I think it's so important that we get out there this message of what stimming is, what this is, so that parents see it in their children. It's not something they try and stamp out because they think they're doing the best for their children. Because every time I told my child, don't do this, don't flap in public, it was because I didn't want them to get, but it wasn't because I was embarrassed. I was just trying to protect them because I wish I'd been
absolutely.
protected in the same way.
And that's like, it's such a natural, normal thing to do to try and protect your child in that way.
Mm.
Um, the way I like to look at it these days is this divergence is written on our DNA.
Yeah.
They're neurodevelopmental conditions, which means that it's on the DNA, and then our brain and all systems change during development. So when your child arrives, the brain, the body knows what to do, and stimming is included in the DNA. That's the stuff that we do very naturally. So for me, it's having the hyperactivity. It's the idea of constantly moving, getting distracted, daydreaming,
Yeah.
and then unfortunately everybody says stop. Don't do that. So you're going against what your body and brain naturally wants to do.
Mm.
And then we're forcing them into masking. So now they're going to have to try and hide and pretend that they don't have this thing.
Yeah.
And then with masking, you can see it at the very beginning. We get rewarded then for masking. If we're
Yeah.
sitting still, it's well done. And
So it's, if I be someone else,
yeah,
they'll like me.
absolutely.
Yeah.
And that's, you're, for anyone who's coming across rejection sensitive dysphoria for the first time, which a lot of people are,
Mm.
and then a
These are
lot of
big
us,
buzzwords at the moment. Yeah.
yeah, the RSD stuff. And the reason being is because when it's put together, it makes total sense. Because if you have a child that is constantly criticized and then reinforced to mask, and then a system where the part of the brain that controls emotions is one of the parts that's affected. So you have like a perfect storm of a brain that's searching for where all the danger lies. So your fight or flight response is trying to figure out from the very beginning
Yeah.
where the danger is. It's trying to keep you alive. A phenomenal brain that we have.
Yeah.
But one thing it does realize is where it's not bears, it's not tigers, it's people.
Yeah.
And the fear, the danger is coming from people. And so our nervous system records all of that information. And then when we go into adulthood, our brain is just searching constantly for this danger, this criticism. When we're going towards people, we're trying to figure it out when we're
We're
in the
trying to read their,
conversations.
I try and read their facial expressions, try
Absolutely.
and read this, to, like when they're a mile away, like, oh, I'm overthinking. Some
Absolutely.
people must walk towards people and just have no thoughts in their brains about, but I'm thinking about the conversation I had with them last week. Conversation I'm going to have, I'm rehearsing it in my head. You know, do you think that's why we're so burnt out? I've met so many people recently and they're like, I'm burnt out and I'm late diagnosed.
Yeah, that's it, when you explain RSD in that exact way, they're walking towards conversations and doing all the scripts in your head, and most of them won't
I
come
was in
up.
my
And then,
car the other day and I saw this man looking at me and I thought, why is he looking at me? I look awful today. Like, what's the reason he's looking at me? And then I realised I'd been sitting at the traffic lights for 5 minutes and I'd been talking out loud, having a conversation in my head, what I was rehearsing for later with my
yeah,
friend. And he just must think I'm crazy, but that's all day, every day. That's so much thought and effort put into something. You're gonna, but system overload.
completely. And if when we're doing that all day, and then when we're in the conversation, as you know, it's about, will I say it now? Will I not say it now?
Yeah,
What's that? That person look didn't laugh. They laughed.
yeah,
They're laughing at me, and then the stupid things that we say.
yeah,
And that one thing, the comments we say, and then we walk away, and then the entire system goes into flux.
yeah,
The fight or flight response is involved because it's on the nervous system. We're triggering all the old traumas of the things that happened related to this in the past.
yeah.
It's an absolute mess
It's a shit show
internally,
all
a
day, every
complete
day.
shit show. And that system, if you think about doing that all day, and this is only that's a part.
Yeah,
That's going to exhaust you alone, and that is one part of the reasons why we lead to burnout. But for a lot of us who are like looking into the whole picture, it looks like it's quite a big piece. The RSD. I think a good part for people to realise is that it's real
yeah,
and that you're not doing something wrong, and there's nothing wrong with you, but I think it needs kindness because it's quite trauma based.
yeah,
And it is a very, very difficult thing to live with. And for people who have it, share the experience with others. Don't have it on your own because it might feel for a person that they're the only one trying to do this or live with this thing. And as you know, for anybody who is divergent and understands, they're coming out and saying, "Yeah, I have this thing too."
yeah. It's really empowering, but it's sad that you realise how much you're there's a lot of inner child to fix. And
Absolutely.
it's a lifetime of inner child, and you're explaining to people about just walking up to someone and having a conversation, and then there's the added thing that if someone switches the light on in my house, I feel like I'm going to die because it gives me sensory overload. And
Yeah.
that's just two things in my day. There is a million things. When I've spoke to you today on the phone, sometimes I speak to people and I feel on edge. And I must say 100%, I don't feel like that with you. I was quite glad within the first 5 minutes.
Fantastic.
I feel quite comfortable, but still I thought, okay, I've got a thought in my head now. Should I interject it before I forget it? Or is that rude? Or is he going to understand because he's also neurodivergent? And
Absolutely.
all of these thoughts have been going through my head for the last 30 minutes. By the time you get off the call, you're exhausted and you are a safe person that I perceive. So what about all of the other people in the world?
Absolutely, where we don't feel safe.
Yeah.
And if the thing you mentioned there as well, the sensory processing side, that is a big one also to explore. I do. So I've got a lovely sensory room where I do therapy. But for people who are trying to figure out the sensory side, a lot of us don't understand what this is. When I ask a lot of people about sensory differences, a lot of people will say no. I don't. I don't have any. Then what I do is put on the horrendous big light in the room,
Oh.
and they were.
I've had sellotape over my big light, like the switches. I do everything. Everyone knows in the house I cannot have the big. It's just a thing.
Come.
I will turn into something very evil
Yes,
with the big light.
and that the so when the big light goes on and a client's here and I sit back down and it really is awful. I don't like it at all. And I asked them how they're feeling and they said, well, it's not as comfortable as it was a minute ago. And then we explore because a lot of us struggle to understand what we're actually feeling related to emotions also. So when we explore what's actually happening, what actually has happened is that they've become instantly anxious
Yeah.
just from a light going on. Now, that's just one light. So we turn it back off, then the nervous system settles back down again.
Yeah.
So that means that a light hits our nervous system and we can feel an emotion related to a light going on. Or sounds that go in and they're also doing the same thing. That builds all day.
All
And
day, every day, and even
every day.
normal things. Like I got a dog, and I thought, this is going to be. It was a bit of an ADHD thing. I thought, oh, it'd be nice to have a dog. I'm going to get a dog, and then I'm going to get two because that's the first one went well, so the second one's going to grow great. And now I've realised, the dog barking. I love the dog so much, but the dog barking makes me want to die sometimes. And my older kids with ADHD, they'll come home, and I love seeing them, but
Yeah,
they are sensory triggers. Even the things I love the most are sensory triggers. And I think I've only realised that recently. And and that's the same with a lot of people. All my life I've been battling it, but I didn't think, okay, I don't like the big light, it's sensory overload, it's because I've got ADHD.
yeah,
Now I'm getting to realise, actually, this is valid. This is valid. And this is because of
absolutely.
ADHD. Where before I just thought, what a weirdo. And I never knew the reason why. And I couldn't even name all the things. Like you said, when the client comes in, they can't say that they've got an aversion to big lights, but when you
Yeah,
turn it on, it changes. We've been masking so much that we don't know. I sat down the other day and I had sushi, and I was sitting there and I was thinking, I was eating it and I was thinking, I have this quite a lot. You know what? I don't even think I like it. I think it was a fashion thing at one stage. Like when I was younger, oh, let's go and get some sushi. And I think I kind of clicked onto it. And I didn't even realise that I've been eating it all these years and I actually don't like it. So, I don't
very
know
good.
what I am anymore. What is the mask and what is me, I can speak to someone Irish and my accent goes into an Irish accent. I can speak to someone from I don't have my own thing. If I speak to someone very well-spoken, I'll become well-spoken. If I
Yeah.
speak to someone that's not as well-spoken, I don't have my own personality. I've masked so long, I don't know who Ellie is.
So this is and I'm laughing because I'm laughing at the for thousands and thousands and thousands of us
Yeah.
who have those sushi moments. Like I don't even like this. What am I
Yeah.
doing? The mask is like the ability that we have to camouflage, to mimic, to fit in, to read a room, to give whatever the person wants in front of us. They're skills. They are absolutely amazing skills that we have.
We
If
all, a social chameleon. I've heard this from so many autistic people. Oh, I'm just a social chameleon. Jack of all trades, master of none. Like, that's
Yeah,
what we throw about.
and the mask is all us.
Yeah.
It's built up strategies, and the more of the exploration that you do, where you're eating sushi and you go, actually, I don't know what I'm doing here. I don't like
Yeah.
this, or that you're in an environment where you're like, actually, I don't think I'm comfortable in these sort of environments
Yeah.
anymore. And the more of that you do, the more you're leaning back into what was originally there, and it really improves the system. So your nervous system settles.
Yeah.
The more of this stuff you do, and when you're exploring it, just I think a lot of people when they're exploring, say, the sensory side of things, can feel like, okay, so you told me about the sensory thing, and now everything's worse. So
Yeah.
I'm hearing everything, I'm seeing everything, I'm feeling things like I've never felt. That was it. So it doesn't. It's not that it gets worse. When you start to tune in and notice, you start to realize the scale of the little bits that you were dealing with.
Yeah.
And the unfortunate part of this then is, somebody who isn't autistic, doesn't have ADHD, and wears sunglasses and headphones going down the road, are wearing sunglasses and headphones going down the road because that's what they like.
Yeah.
But for many of us, neurodivergent people feel like it's some sort of sign that says that there's something wrong with us.
Yeah.
And so we won't do the things then that the body is asking for, which is a pair of sunglasses and noise cancelling headphones,
Yeah. So
because it'd be too weird.
my child is 20 now, and they probably would have really benefited from ear defenders.
Yeah.
But they're like that part of the spectrum where they're still quite socially aware when they were growing up, that I don't want to look like there's something inherently, now they wouldn't give a shit, but I don't want to look like there's something inherently wrong with me. I'm not going to wear ear defenders, so I always bought them the coolest, the Beats, them expensive headphones,
Yeah.
as a happy medium, and they wear them constantly. I mean, they wear them to bed still 20 years later, but they lose them constantly, but that's the ADHD.
Yeah.
It's the tax we pay.
Yeah.
But yeah, but I think that's where it is. But I think now people are happier. I've seen people now embracing ear defenders in their adult life because they're like, do you know what? Fuck it.
Yeah,
Life's
completely.
too short. I'm just gonna have to deal with it. It's too
And
much.
And there's like the idea that wearing ear defenders, there's something wrong with it. It is only when you get more comfortable with yourself and you look
Yeah.
back, and you can say these things. God, it's so obvious. Just do whatever you need,
Yeah.
and you don't need to apologize for it. But at the start of the journey, that's a very complex one, as you know, and it's very difficult because a lot of us do feel like it's an identification that they don't want people to know.
Yeah.
And so you're back into the masking again, and the idea of stepping out with just a pair of headphones for some people, that's work I do with clients sometimes, is like the idea of getting used to wearing headphones, because up until that point, there's no way you'd wear a pair because people then would know that there's something wrong with me.
Yeah. But so that's unmasking slowly and unmasking safely. And is
Yeah.
that something, a lot of people say to me, I get emails every day like, how can I unmask? What I've been trying for a week, for example, and I'm not doing it. And I'm like, I don't even know. Like, I love The Cure, right? The band, right?
Yeah.
But I'm 40 years old. I'm quite an old soul. Van Morrison is my favourite singer, and I was listening to it the other day, and I was thinking, I don't know if I even like this. And I've been thinking this for years and years, and I know for years and years that I'm unmasking. It is a journey, and I don't think I'll ever get there. I don't think I'll ever know if I'll be fully unmasked. You can't expect to do it. It's not an overnight process.
No, it isn't. And the thing, I suppose the thing that you can do, and a lot of people with children can do also, is to have a look at what a neurodivergent person is doing.
Yeah.
Like, what are they naturally, and to encourage it. And then you can replicate that as an adult also. And with unmasking, it's not a week. It's a slow process.
Yeah.
But it should be a process of no pressure. There's been enough pressure applied
That's
through
what I'm
life
saying,
by
yeah.
people. Take it easy and gently, and it is the idea of, I suppose for me it was like wearing sunglasses into a coffee shop for the first time, because The coffee shops are still bright spaces. And then dealing with the anxiety related to that. And for some people, that sort of thing is it anxiety shoot up. And then if you're in a coffee shop then sometime later and you have your headphones on and you're wearing sunglasses, you'll feel that anxiety is way down.
Yeah.
So then that's a complex picture of a mixture between anxiety, but also the sensory processing side shooting up your anxieties. So it's an exploration and it's slow. And I suppose for people, just notice are there environments where, in particular, you're finding really uncomfortable, that you feel afterwards you're exhausted,
Yeah.
or you're in it and your anxieties are shooting up, and then maybe something like the sensory side has something to do with it. And then a lot of us realize later on, if on the ADHD side, incredibly social. On the autism side, might not need too much socialization. And for a lot of people, then it is understanding what's acceptable to them for socializing also, and what they feel like they should be doing.
Yeah.
And a lot of people feel like, I have to go to that party, I have to go to that birthday, I have. And actually, when you realize that there's a lot of things you don't have to go to,
Yeah.
or if you do, that you have a plan, you go in for your few hours and then back out again with your system still intact.
I think I've realised that because, all the years I've been going to family functions, I've got a big family, they go to family functions, and I'd go there for years and I'd get drunk because
Yeah,
it's the only way I could deal with it. And then I stopped drinking. I stopped drinking 10 years ago, and I stopped going to family functions, and I just thought, that's just not something I can do when I'm not drinking. It's not me. And the other day, my mum got married to my dad randomly after like 45 years together, and I went to her hen party in a restaurant, and I went there and I said, you know what, and they said, God, Ellie, where have you been like for decades? And I said, listen, I don't drink anymore. And drinking was my mask. And
yeah,
I've been diagnosed autistic, and I'm going to embrace that. So when I disappear at 9 o'clock, when you all start dancing, that's me now. And I'm comfortable with that. And I'm cool with that. And I
yeah,
think having the language to express that, before
absolutely.
I would have been like, how do you explain actually I used to drink and blah blah blah, and now I don't anymore. Having the language to say I'm unmasking now, and people knowing what that means, is such a powerful and validating thing.
And the very common idea that alcohol is needed
Yeah.
at a really, like, lots of it,
Yeah.
in order to just cope
And
with
especially with
the
ADHD,
environment.
because you can't do, so my ADHD and me, I couldn't do one thing. If I do something, I do it big.
Yes.
With
Yes.
everything, I can't do things in moderation. So the alcohol was a real problem, but it was a crutch because it helped with my autism, because I felt so out of place everywhere.
Absolutely. I think a lot of people will understand that experience, because it's so common, where people realize, okay, so the drugs, the
Yeah,
alcohol, that
that
was
as
something
well.
different. That was
Yeah.
something different. And it is, I think, like these conversations, people making sense of that. If you do that in the right way, it's actually really, really good to explore that when you realize that, look, I was actually dealing with a system that I completely misunderstood and
Yeah.
didn't understand. And that's the unmasking bit, is that exact thing. It's like, okay, how do I become more like the original thing? Like,
Yeah.
what was there before it? And what you're seeing is that exact journey where it's less social, and everybody's totally unique with this journey.
Yeah.
So it's not that you have to become less social in order to be at your best as a neurodivergent person, but it's simply listening. And if your body is getting tired, and you're getting exhausted and burned out, and you're in repeated cycles of burnout, then something needs to be changed there. And what I do, and you know this at this point, it's lots of little things.
Yeah.
You don't have to do anything major. Don't make any major decisions. Just make lots of little small
Little tiny
changes.
changes. Yeah.
Yeah, and they're the ones that work. And then, because we're not great at noticing ourselves a lot of the time, keeping note of how you are doing.
Yeah.
Noticing what's going on in your body, seeing, is sleep improving, are your energy levels starting to improve, and you will start to notice over time, as you know, when you keep doing that cycle of little tweaks along the way, the system gets better.
Yeah. I think for me, it's a major thing that made such a difference and had a knock on effects on every aspect was boundaries. So,
Yeah,
because of my RSD and because I've always felt like shite about myself and internalized it since a child, I will be the biggest people pleaser. You ask me to do something, even if I have to abandon my own house and set myself on fire, I'm
yeah,
doing it for you because that's what I think being a good person is. Um, and I've now realized that actually that has come from me feeling like my self-worth is low. So I think for a lot of people that I've noticed with neurodivergence,
yeah,
that really helps. Just setting some very small boundaries and knowing why you're doing it. Because before I just thought, okay, I'm a good person. Of course I'm gonna, abandon myself to help somebody else. And
yeah.
no, I didn't know why I was doing it. And I think when you unmask, I think one of the main things that I say to people is go slowly, put some boundaries in place for yourself because you've probably never had them before, because that is a big thing. Do you notice a lot of people with neurodivergence have trouble setting boundaries?
Oh, completely. And that people pleasing is I think nearly everybody understands that word. And then
Yeah.
perfectionism as well. And that's all the RSD stuff.
Hmm.
It really does lead us to being quite vulnerable
Yeah, so
because of.
vulnerable.
So yeah, and it's hard for people to hear that. Particularly men sometimes who are
Yeah.
divergent. The idea of vulnerability and like, hold on a minute, I'm not vulnerable. No, this is vulnerability, and then exploring that vulnerability and that people pleasing bit, and realizing, my goodness, like the situations I've been in and the things I've done and how much I've given of myself.
Scary. It's
Um,
honestly, it's scary. That's why, I'm
yeah,
pretty sure my daughter's neurodivergent. I'm pretty sure all my kids, whether it's learned behavior, because when I first went for my diagnosis, they couldn't tell whether it was learned behavior or whether it was nature or nurture. So I'm pretty sure my daughter's neurodivergent, but when I talk to her, I try and fill her with so much confidence
yeah,
and tell her the things that she's doing right,
yeah,
because I want her to be able to set healthy boundaries, because I think the fact that I can't set healthy boundaries was because I was always thinking, oh, they won't like me, so I have to give them all my money for them to like me. You know what? Like if you go
yeah,
out with your
completely.
friends, it makes us so vulnerable. So I never
Yeah,
want her to experience that vulnerability where, oh, no one likes me, so I have to go off with this guy because he must like
yeah.
me and he'll like. It's such a scary world because we are vulnerable. And now I see why I've been so vulnerable all my life, It's scary.
With the things that you do learn later on, and for the younger generation, the idea of saying no, um, it's not a natural position,
Yeah.
as you know. So exploring what no is, how acceptable it is, learning to use it as a word, because most people simply won't say no. And then little tips like never saying yes
Yeah.
immediately. Can I think about that? Because the ADHD impulsivity. Sure, yes, well, let's do it. And then two things are happening at the same time,
Yeah.
and you're trying to firefight. Then,
And you feel so bloody bad. Like if you've got,
yeah,
you over apologizing. And the thing is, it's not even people's fault. So I've made myself such a martyr over the years that
yeah,
people have just learned that, you got a problem, you call Ellie. You want your kids babysat, Ellie will do it. She'll cancel her own plans because, that's Ellie. I've taught people that. So to unteach, it's not even their fault. To unteach them that is also a journey. So it's everyone around you that's having to learn, actually, she needed boundaries and we took the piss a little bit.
yeah. Like for anyone struggling with boundaries, and many do, boundaries is very difficult, as you know, because people like, how am I going to tackle this? I've got a family member, and this can't continue, or a friend, and this is like it's all too much. I like boundaries where you take it nice and slow.
Yeah.
You don't have to make big statements. You can if you want. But the boundaries were like, okay, from now on, I'm deciding.
Yeah.
And then nice and gently saying, well, actually, I'm not going to do that.
Yeah.
Or, look, I'm actually doing something else. Really gently shifting those boundaries.
So you don't
That,
have to come to them and send them this epic text message and says, I've just been
absolutely,
diagnosed with neurodivergence. I know that I can't do any of these things anymore. I've been doing it. It's people pleasing. It doesn't have to be one
doesn't have to
huge
be.
statement. It can be just people. I think it's for pattern recognition. I think when people see you putting things in place, they
Yeah.
then learn, a new Ellie, a new pattern, a new thing. It doesn't have to be a big hard slap.
And
It
and
can
some
be.
yes, no hard slaps. But the I think the one that works really well sometimes are the boundaries that people don't even see.
Yeah.
You can shift boundaries so slowly that, like you said, the person gets used to the new pattern. And, this is all self improvement. This is really, really good stuff. So people who are good and are on your side will go along with this. If
Yeah.
people are not going along with it, then we've got to question their motivation in all this. Because if somebody has been taking, and now you're starting to shift things and you're not giving as much, and that becomes a problem, over time we've got to question what that relationship was. And
Yeah.
sometimes this process does lead, and not always, but it does lead sometimes to you realizing actually this friend is not good,
Yeah.
and has to go now.
I think a lot of people, when I've spoke to a few men recently that said that they've realised that they're neurodivergent, either they've been diagnosed or they've been self-diagnosed, and
Yeah.
their relationships have really started to suffer for it because they've had to put a few boundaries and things in place, and people don't like this new them, and my wife's been used to me for 50 years, and now she's like, I feel like I've married someone else, and our whole relationship's been a lie because it was based on the mask. There is so many issues that people are having with masking. It isn't just that simple, taking your mask off.
Yeah.
Sometimes you take your mask off you've worn all along in front of your children, and your children are like, hey, mum's a different person. They feel like their whole life's been a lie. It affects so many different things in your life. It's not that easy, so be easy on yourself.
Oh, be easy on yourself completely. And with that, look, it is when you start to change, and as you know, like we don't have a good relationship with change anyway ourselves.
Yeah.
So other
Yeah.
people are seeing that change. So we do have to give people time. But I do think the key is communication and learning a new way of communicating. It is different. It's a more honest, more open type of communication. The good people, give people time, please. Always give people time.
Yeah.
But the good ones, over time, they'll
They
be
will
there.
stay. Yeah.
Yeah, they'll be there. The ones that don't want this and they're stuck in old habits and they ain't changing, then we've got to make a decision. And sometimes that decision gets made for us. There can be a rupture or a break in relationships or with friends. But the self improvement journey goes on. We keep looking after ourselves, caring for ourselves.
Yeah.
Because if you're late diagnosed, you've got a lot of trauma, a lot of
We've
baggage.
got a lot of
Um,
catching up, catching
co-
up to do. So much.
yes.
I feel like I look at my sister, and I don't know if she's neurodivergent or not, but she's not had any issues, that I know of, and she's so much further in. I'm one of like five girls, and they're all so much further than me in life. They've all bought houses, have property, have careers, blah blah blah, and I feel like I'm 10 years old still in my mind. I'm so far behind them. I've got to catch up everything now because I know what's wrong with me. I now have to do this catch up game, and I think a lot of people are in that same position at the moment.
And we sometimes we come late to the party.
Yeah.
As the virgin
Yes,
people.
say that.
We arrive, and sometimes they're the best people. We do arrive a bit later with things. That's a very common experience. But I have seen, like, one of the when we get going and when we really start to figure out that we're divergent, there's something wrong with us, we can start to make massive strides.
It's
And
validating. Fucking hell, it's
completely, and
validating.
we can catch up
Yeah.
with people. And always
We're good at
remember,
hyper focus and catching up because we've been doing it our whole lives.
and completely, and with that sort of thinking as well, always remember the time blindness part of thinking. So we can often think that we're out of time, and when we
Yeah.
look into the future, we're all catastrophizers. So we can end up
Hmm.
thinking quite negatively about the future, that we're
Yeah.
running out of time, should have it done by now, and a lot of that can be simply explained by time blindness. We don't have a good relationship or understanding at times
Yeah.
with that. Knowing that alone, that's a thing. Don't go into the future. You can't predict it, but make positive changes now, and you'll get to a nice destination. But if you keep staring ahead, we don't know what's ahead, and when we don't know, we like predictability.
Yeah.
then we can catastrophize. And when we
I
catastrophize, that'll affect your mental health.
I've come across my whole life as being so controlling. So people are like, Ellie's trying to control me. But no, it's because I like the predictability. I want people to be safe. You know, every time my children leave the house, which is hard because I got one in Egypt at the moment, one working at the train station. I'm thinking all day that he's going to fall in the tracks. I'm thinking the one in Egypt's going to get in a road traffic accident. I'm catastrophizing and I'm texting people 20 times a day to see if they're okay. And it's not because I'm controlling. It's because I need that safeness and that predictability. So a lot of people don't understand that.
Yeah, and we like for anyone who understands the catastrophizing, they'll all get it.
Yeah.
We run, and because we got visual brains
Yeah.
as well and visual thinking, some of the imagery that you're looking at, you'll be
That's fucking
seeing.
horrific.
Yeah, you'll be seeing it. And,
Yeah. Makes you think there's something wrong with you. God, I have something wrong with me. Why am I imagining my child being kidnapped?
no,
But you
that's intrusive thoughts. We, as neurodivergent people, we have a higher rate of this type of
yeah.
thinking. Known as well what intrusive thoughts are. There's a lot of thoughts that are real in the head, and there's a lot of ones that we simply shouldn't give our time to. And the ones that are causing the stress that they flash in, we're getting images. They're the ones that I like to tackle in therapy a little bit because if you stare at those, it really does affect, as you know, how
Yeah.
you are in
Yeah.
a day.
Yeah.
And with intrusive thoughts, for people we all have a level of these. Intrusive thoughts will be the things that you don't want to think.
Yeah.
It'll be the opposite of what's about to happen. But when they arrive into the head, because they're so distressing, it makes us feel like something's about to happen.
Yes,
But they're not based
it's
on
an
reality.
impending sense of doom, which I always thought was just me. I always have this impending sense of doom, not always, but a lot. And a lot of people have came to me lately and said, "Oh, you know about AuDHD, Ellie? Do you know what an impending sense of doom is?" And I'm like, "Yes, yes,
I
it
live with
is a
it.
thing. Yeah, of course." But I didn't realize so many other people had it until recently.
Yeah, I think intrusive thoughts is probably the one of the most common things in therapy, and the reason being is like if you take teenagers who come in and say, "Look, I'm having a very distressing thought about something,"
Yeah,
and it's always the opposite of who the person is,
yeah,
and you can start to believe that it's real.
yeah,
Because of how the brain and body changes, because it feels they're very hard to stop looking at them because it's like, oh my goodness, what do I? The brain will want you to do something based on what that thought is.
yeah,
And actually, the opposite is what you should do with an intrusive thought. If you feed it, if you look at it, if it gets airtime, gets more food, they grow,
yeah.
they get bigger,
That's
and
like with
they
anything.
stay.
Yeah, that makes sense. That
Yeah,
that makes perfect sense.
those
Robert,
are ones we should
yeah.
ignore, if
Robert,
possible.
I've super loved talking to you. I had a list of about 30 questions and I've got through about two of them, but I'm really happy because you know what? I think that we tackled some really important prevalent things. Where can we find you, Robert? If we need you, if we want to learn more, if you know, where can we find you?
It's robertrackley.ie. So I'm over in Ireland and I do therapy across the world. The therapy's done on the Zoom, and the reason why I'm doing therapy across the world is for neurodivergent people who, in particular, can't find somebody local
Yeah.
or with that expertise. So a lot of the stuff I do is around people trying to learn or understand themselves, or for people who have that question in the air: could this be part of my picture? Could it be autism? Could it be ADHD? Or it's a blend and mix. So there's other bits and pieces in there.
Yeah.
So robertrackley.ie, and
Is it, sorry, your accent for some people might be strong, not for me. It's Robert Rackley, and what's the last bit?
it's .ie. So that
Dot
it's,
IE.
the .ie is the Ireland bit. So it's the second name is Rackley.
Perfect. Honestly, Robert, I appreciate you so much, and I've actually had an amazing time.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, honestly. Thank you so much. Is there anything that you think that we haven't said, you know, before we
Um,
go?
a final statement just for people to for
Not my
divergent
final thought. Yeah.
for people who are divergent. We're not lazy. We're not broken. We're not flawed people. We have very significant mental health problems because of how society is dealing with
Yeah.
us, and we're seen as problems to be fixed. Uh, I think people should start to rethink about what being divergent is, and we certainly are not problems to be fixed. there is an understanding to be done by ourselves. But the idea of us, thinking that we're lazy, we're not doing enough, they're the sort of thoughts that we have to start considering that we could be wrong, and it
Yeah.
might be a societal problem,
Funny that, yeah.
which it is, which it is.
Yeah, and we need to reclaim our power. And you know what power is? Knowledge. And since I've got so many words for things that I didn't know before, I just feel so much more powerful, and I just want to spread the message. So thank you for helping me, Robert. It was amazing.
Thank you very much.
Bye.